Assalamu alaikum, let's explore this Islamic topic together. Hey, so, you know how we were talking about different architectural styles the other day? I was thinking more about Islamic architecture. And it's totally blown my mind how much symbolism is packed into every single building. It's not just pretty, it's a whole language, a visual story told in stone, tile, and calligraphy. Think about it. A building isn't just a building, right? It's a reflection of the culture, the beliefs, the history of the people who created it. And in Islam, that's even more pronounced. Islamic architecture isn't just about making a functional space. It's about creating a tangible representation of faith, a visual testament to God's glory. That's why understanding the symbolic language is so crucial to appreciating it. The significance goes way back to the very beginnings of Islam. Remember, the Prophet Muhammad himself emphasized simplicity and avoiding ostentation. Early mosques were incredibly humble, often just simple structures, sometimes even open-air courtyards. But even in that simplicity, there was a deep meaning. The Qibla wall, facing the Kaaba in Makkah, became the focal point, literally pointing the community towards the heart of their faith. That direction, that orientation, isn't just practical. It's a powerful symbolic gesture of unity and devotion. As Islam spread across vast territories, from Spain to India, from North Africa to Southeast Asia, its architectural expression naturally evolved. But the core symbolic elements remained. You see, Islamic architecture isn't a monolithic style. You've got the soaring minarets of the Ottoman Empire, the intricate geometric patterns of the Alhambra in Spain, the breathtaking domes of Iran's mosques. They're all incredibly diverse, but they share a common language of symbols. Let's talk about some of these key symbols. The dome, for instance, is incredibly important. It often represents the heavens, a celestial vault symbolizing the divine presence. The larger and more elaborately decorated the dome, the more it expresses the grandeur and majesty of God. Think about the Hagia Sophia in Istanbul, initially a Byzantine church, later a mosque, and now a museum. Its massive dome is a breathtaking visual statement, showcasing the power and scope of the faith. Then there are the minarets, those slender towers that often grace the skyline of a mosque. They're not just beautiful, they're symbolic of the call to prayer. The Adhan, which echoes across the city, summoning the faithful to worship. The shape itself, reaching towards the sky, is a powerful visual representation of aspiration, of seeking closeness to God. Geometric patterns are everywhere in Islamic architecture. And they're not just decorative. Islam prohibits the depiction of living beings in religious art. So artists used complex geometric designs, arabesques, and calligraphy to express their faith. These intricate patterns are seen as a reflection of the infinite nature of God. The endless repetition suggesting the boundless creativity and majesty of the divine. Each intricate knot, each interwoven design, is a meditation on the perfection of creation. Calligraphy plays a huge role too. The Quranic verses, the names of God, and prayers are not simply inscribed. They're woven into the very fabric of the buildings. They adorn the walls, the ceilings, the arches, transforming the building itself into a sacred. The skill of the calligrapher becomes a form of worship. And the beautifully crafted letters become a physical manifestation of divine words. It's like the architecture is whispering the message of the Quran. Courtyards are another essential element. They provide a space for contemplation, reflection, and community gathering. The enclosed nature of the courtyard creates a sense of peace and tranquility. A sanctuary from the outside world. mirroring the inner peace sought through devotion. Water features, like fountains and pools, are often incorporated, symbolizing purity, life, and the abundance of God's blessings. Even the materials used hold symbolic weight. The rich colors of tiles, the intricate carvings in stone, the shimmering mosaics, all contribute to the overall effect of awe and reverence. These aren't just materials, they're chosen for their beauty and their ability to evoke a sense of spirituality. So, as you can see, Islamic architecture's symbolic language is far more than just aesthetics. It's a powerful expression of faith, a visual representation of core beliefs, a testament to the enduring legacy of a rich and vibrant culture. Each element, from the grand dome to the smallest geometric pattern, speaks volumes about the history, the beliefs, and the enduring spirit of Islam. It's a conversation between the architect, God, and the believer, expressed in the language of stone and light. And next time you see a picture of an Islamic building, I hope you'll look at it with a deeper understanding and appreciation for the powerful symbolism woven into its very being. Hey, so, we were talking about Islamic architecture the other day, right? And you mentioned how incredibly symbolic it all is. It's true, it's not just pretty buildings. It's a whole visual language, a way of communicating beliefs and ideas without even saying a word. Let's go back to the very beginning. Imagine those early days. Think about the Qur'an. The Islamic Empire was exploding across North Africa and the Middle East. Conquest wasn't just about military might, it was also about the spread of faith and ideas. But they weren't forcing conversion, at least not in the same way as some other empire. They were attracting people, and part of that attraction was the sheer magnificence of what they were building. So, what started this whole symbolic language in architecture? Well, it wasn't a sudden invention. More like a slow, organic growth. A few key elements. First, there's this deep-rooted reverence for God, Allah. Everything, including architecture, needed to reflect that. You'll find that reflected early on in the very structure of the mosques. Imagine the first grand mosques. Not necessarily huge, ornate buildings like we often picture, but simple, functional spaces. Their fundamental design, the Qibla wall, pointing towards Makkah, the holiest city for Muslims, immediately established the core religious. That wall wasn't just a direction. It was a physical manifestation of faith, a constant reminder of the center of the Muslim world, a focal point for prayer and spiritual connection. This wasn't just about building a building. It was about creating a space for community and connection with God. Then, you see the incorporation of existing styles. Think about it, the early Islamic world encompassed a vast territory with a rich heritage of Roman, Byzantine, and Persian architecture. Instead of rejecting these styles outright, Muslim architects brilliantly adapted and reinterpreted them, adding their unique symbolic layer on top. You'll find influences of Roman arches, Byzantine domes, and Persian geometric patterns, all being subtly transformed. It was like taking existing languages and dialects and creating a new, richer one reflecting the new unified faith. Let's talk about the geometric patterns. You know, those mesmerizing tessellations, arabesques, and calligraphy that decorate almost every Islamic structure? These weren't just decorative flourishes. They held profound symbolic meaning. For example, the repeated patterns represented the infinite nature of God, the boundless and unending universe that God created. The intricate detail, the painstaking precision, was a testament to the devotion and skill of the artisans, reflecting the beauty and complexity of the divine creation. And the calligraphy. Oh my goodness. The calligraphy. Initially, it might have seemed like decorative embellishment. But each carefully crafted letter, each perfectly formed word, was a sacred art form. The Quran, the holy book of Islam, was often inscribed on the walls of mosques and other significant buildings, transforming the structures themselves into tangible expressions of faith. The calligraphy itself became a powerful visual representation of God's words, a constant reminder of divine teachings woven into the very fabric of the building. Then there were the domes. These weren't just about creating a large roof. They symbolized the heavens, the vast expanse of the sky, a kind of earthly representation of God's infinite power. The height and grandeur of the dome literally elevated the experience of worship, creating a sense of awe and reverence, connecting the worshippers to something much bigger than themselves. Similarly, the use of light and shadow played a critical role. Think of the intricate patterns cast by the sun shining through the stained glass windows or the pierced screens. Jali. These weren't just aesthetic choices. They created a dynamic, ever-changing atmosphere inside the building. It added a spiritual dimension, transforming the space into a living, breathing environment that reflected the changing moods and times of the day, mirroring the ever-present nature of God. The minaret, that slender tower often associated with mosques, wasn't merely a decorative element. It was the call to prayer, a symbolic announcement to the community, a reminder of the importance of devotion and community gathering. Its height and elegance visually represented the aspiration towards God, reaching towards the heavens. Over time, these early symbolic elements evolved and expanded. But the foundations were laid in those early days. A deep-rooted reverence for God, the adaptation and integration of existing styles, and the creative use of geometric patterns, calligraphy, light, and space to convey profound religious and philosophical ideas. It wasn't just about building buildings. It was about creating spaces that expressed, conveyed, and celebrated faith, reflecting the infinite nature of God and inspiring faith and devotion in the hearts of those who saw and experienced them. It's a story of incredibly skilled craftsmanship, breathtaking beauty, and deeply meaningful symbolism. A visual narrative that continues to inspire and amaze us today. Hey, so, we were talking about Islamic architecture, right? We touched on the early stuff, the simple, almost austere beauty of the early mosques. But things get really interesting in the middle chapters. The period roughly from the 10th to the 18th centuries. That's when Islamic architecture truly blossoms. And its symbolic language gets incredibly rich and complex. Think of it like this. The early mosques were like a clear, strong statement. But then, as Islamic empire expanded and flourished, the architecture started reflecting that growth. A kind of visual storytelling. It wasn't just about building a place of worship. It was about expressing a whole worldview, a complex relationship with God, and the power and sophistication of the Islamic world. One of the most powerful symbols is the dome. Now, you see domes everywhere, but in Islamic architecture, they're not just for aesthetics. They represent the heavens, the celestial dome, the ultimate power and glory of God. The bigger and more ornate the dome, often the more significant the building. Think the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem. That's not just a visually stunning structure, it's a powerful statement about the divine. The dome's shape itself evokes a sense of transcendence, lifting the gaze upwards, towards the divine. And then there are the minarets. Those tall, slender towers are incredibly symbolic. They're obviously used for the call to prayer, the asterisk adhan, but they're so much more than that. They're like fingers pointing towards heaven, constantly reminding people of God's presence and the importance of prayer. The elegant spirals and intricate detailing on many minarets. Those stunning geometric patterns, they're not just decorative. They symbolize the ascent to spiritual heights, the journey towards God. It's like climbing a ladder to reach the divine. Each minaret is a visual testament to the constant striving for spiritual growth within Islam. We also have the Iwan, that monumental arched hall, often found in mosques and palaces. It's a very important space, both architecturally and symbolically. The Iwan creates a sense of grandeur and welcome. It's a space where people gather, where community is built. But also, the curve of the arch, the way it frames the landscape or the courtyard beyond, represents the welcoming embrace of God. It's a visual representation of hospitality and community, reflecting the importance of social interaction within Islamic culture. And let's not forget the geometric patterns. These aren't just random designs. Islamic art, including architecture, often avoids depicting living beings directly, partly due to interpretations of certain verses in the Quran. So, artists and architects channeled their creativity into incredibly intricate geometric patterns, calligraphy, and arabesques. These designs are not just decorative. They're symbolic of the infinite nature of God, the endless repetition and complexity of the cosmos, and the interconnectedness of all things. Each perfectly formed tile, each perfectly placed piece of calligraphy, is a tiny testament to precision, order, and the perfection of God's creation. Then you have calligraphy, which is essentially elevated to an art form in Islamic architecture. Verses from the Quran, the names of God, or poetic inscriptions are woven into the very fabric of the buildings, adorning walls, arches, and domes. This is more than just decoration. It's a way of sanctifying the space, of infusing the building with the very words of God. Imagine walking into a mosque and being surrounded by these beautiful, flowing scripts, constantly reminded of the divine message. It's a profoundly moving experience. The use of specific materials also carries symbolic weight. The use of brick, for instance, especially in early Islamic architecture, often reflects a sense of simplicity and strength, a connection to the earth and the inherent beauty of unadorned materials. Later, the use of marble and other precious materials, especially in grand palaces and mosques, reflected the wealth and power of the Islamic Empire but also symbolized the opulence and beauty of God's creation. Even the courtyards within mosques and palaces are significant, often featuring a central pool or fountain. They represent a kind of paradise garden, a tranquil space for reflection and contemplation, a microcosm of the heavenly gardens promised in the Quran. The water itself, ever flowing, symbolizes life, purity, and renewal. So, you see, it's not just about bricks and mortar. Islamic architecture, especially during this middle period, is a rich tapes woven with religious beliefs, historical artistic skill, and deep symbolism. Each element, from the grand dome to the smallest geometric pattern, contributes to a powerful and moving whole, a visual expression of faith, power, and the enduring beauty of Islamic civilization. It's a language we can still decipher and appreciate today, a testament to the enduring power of art and belief. Hey, so, we've been chatting about Islamic architecture, right? And how it's not just about pretty buildings, but a whole language of symbols, a visual storytelling that spans centuries. It's amazing to think about, isn't it? We've covered so much: the geometric patterns, the calligraphy, the domes, the minarets, each a piece of a much larger puzzle. But as we near the end of this exploration, how did this rich symbolic language actually conclude? That's a tricky question, because it didn't really conclude in a single moment. More like it evolved and adapted, constantly reflecting the changing cons and interpretations of Islam itself. Think about it, Islamic architecture wasn't a static thing. It started blossoming in the 7th century, fueled by the rapid expansion of the Islamic Empire. The early mosques in places like Damascus and Medina were relatively simple, reflecting the practical needs of a growing community. There was on functionality, a place for prayer, a gathering space. But even then, you see hints of the symbolic language emerging, the Qibla wall, always oriented towards Makkah, signifying the unity and direction of faith. The courtyard, representing the Garden of Paradise, offered a tranquil space for reflection. These were the foundational elements, the alphabet if you will, of this architectural language. As the empire grew, so did the sophistication of the architecture. The Abbasid Caliphate, for instance, saw a huge burst of creativity. We get these magnificent structures in Baghdad, Cordoba, and elsewhere, with elaborate domes, intricate carvings, and the masterful use of calligraphy. Now, the language becomes more nuanced. The calligraphy, for example, wasn't just decoration, it was a powerful statement of faith, often containing verses from the Quran or the names of Allah and the Prophet Muhammad. Each carefully chosen word, each elegant script, held deep meaning. Think of it like a sacred, but in stone and mortar. The geometric patterns, too, took on a deeper significance, reflecting the mathematical order and harmony believed to be inherent in the universe. A divine blueprint reflected in the design. Then we see the different regional styles emerge. The architecture of Persia differed greatly from that of Spain or India, reflecting the unique cultural cons and artistic traditions. Yet, the underlying symbolic language remained, adapting and evolving, finding new ways to express the core Islamic values. You had the magnificent mosques of the Ottoman Empire, grand and imposing, projecting power and prestige. But even in their scale and grandeur, you could still find those same core symbols. The dome representing the heavens, the minarets reaching towards the divine. However, as the centuries rolled on, the political and social landscapes shifted. Colonialism impacted many Muslim lands, and the construction of new mosques slowed down in some places. In others, new styles emerged, sometimes incorporating elements from outside traditions. Even then, the architects never fully abandoned the symbolic language of their ancestors. They found innovative ways to blend the old with the new. You might see modern materials and engineering techniques being used, but the core principles remain, the emphasis on the use of geometric patterns, the reverence for calligraphy. It's a continual conversation between past and present. So, the conclusion isn't a dramatic ending, but a subtle evolution. It's not that Islamic architecture stopped being built, or the symbolic language fell out of use. It's more like the language itself continues to be spoken, although with a growing range of accents and dialects. Modern Islamic architecture retains many of these symbols, albeit with new expressions. Architects today are still engaging in a dialogue with this rich history. They're reinterpreting the established vocabulary, creating new buildings that both honor tradition and respond to the needs of contemporary Muslim communities. Therefore, thinking about Islamic architecture's symbolic language's conclusion is less about a definitive end, and more about a continuous of adaptation and reinterpretation. It's a living legacy, A vibrant tradition that continues to shape the built environment of Muslim communities around the world, constantly finding new ways to express the enduring values and beliefs at its core. It's a story that's still being written, and it's one I find absolutely fascinating. What do you think? What aspects stand out to you the most? So, what does Islamic architecture's symbolic language teach Muslims today? Let's reflect. It's more than just pretty buildings. It's like a giant, centuries-old book, written not in words, but in arches, domes, minarets, and intricate details. Think about it, these structures weren't just slapped together. They were meticulously planned, every element carrying a specific meaning. A silent sermon etched in stone and tile. Imagine the early days of Islam. A burgeoning faith spreading across vast landscapes. Building mosques wasn't just about creating a place for prayer. It was about establishing a physical manifestation of their beliefs, a tangible representation of their faith's ideals. These weren't just buildings, they were statements. Take the dome, for instance. That beautiful, sweeping curve is often interpreted as representing the heavens, a reminder of God's omnipotence and the vastness of creation. Look at the Alhambra in Spain, or the Taj Mahal in India. The sheer scale of those domes. Their elegance. It's breathtaking. It evokes a sense of awe and wonder, guiding you to reflect on your place within the divine order. It's not just about shelter. It's about transcendence. And the minarets, those slender towers reaching towards the sky, calling the faithful to prayer. They're more than just functional elements. They are symbolic arrows pointing upwards. A visual reminder of the constant striving for spiritual elevation. A physical manifestation of the qiyam standing in prayer itself. They visually represent the ascension towards God. Think of the intricate calligraphy adorning them. The verses from the Quran etched into the very fabric of the structure. It's a constant, silent recitation. A visual testament to God's word. Then there are the arches, so many different types, each with its own subtle significance. The pointed arch, so prevalent in many styles, is often seen as reflecting the aspiration towards the divine. Its sharp angles echoing a sense of pointed prayer and yearning. Contrast that with the horseshoe arch, common in Moorish architecture, which has its own unique grace and elegance, suggesting a different aesthetic yet still carrying its own symbolism within the overall language. Think about the geometric patterns. 2. Islamic art often avoids depicting living beings, instead on intricate geometric designs and arabesques, those endlessly repeating, flowing patterns. They're not random. They represent the infinite nature of God, the boundless complexity and beauty of creation. They're a visual representation of the interconnectedness of everything. Each pattern, each tessellation is a meditation in itself, a silent prayer unfolding in the spaces between the lines. And the use of calligraphy? It's not just decoration, it's a sacred art form. The very act of writing the Quran, meticulously hand-scripted onto walls or incorporated into architectural elements, elevates the space itself. It transforms the building into a living testament to God's word, a continuous recitation whispered into the very stones. Imagine spending years carefully crafting those letters, each one imbued with meaning and reverence. The artist, the precision, it's awe-inspiring. This symbolic language isn't just a thing of the past. It's incredibly relevant to Muslims today. By understanding the intentions behind these architectural elements, we are better able to appreciate the rich history and the enduring wisdom of our faith. It offers a tangible connection to generations of believers who came before us, who built these incredible structures is a testament to their faith. For example, the emphasis on intricate detail encourages a contemplative approach to life. The level of precision and dedication that went into these structures instills a sense of appreciation for craftsmanship and artists. It shows us that even the most seemingly mundane tasks can be infused with meaning and purpose when approached with faith and dedication. The on geometric patterns and calligraphy teaches patience and discipline. These designs weren't created overnight. They required meticulous planning, skill, and a dedication to precision. They encourage us to strive for excellence in our own lives, to appreciate the of creation and the beauty that arises from careful, mindful work. Finally, the very act of visiting these spaces, of appreciating the majesty and the symbolism, is a form of spiritual renewal. It's a reminder of the power of faith, the beauty of creation, and the enduring legacy of our shared heritage. It's a way to connect with something larger than ourselves, to feel a sense of awe and wonder, and to be reminded of the importance of striving for spiritual growth. So, Islamic architecture's symbolic language is not just about aesthetics. It's about understanding the deeper meaning embedded within the very stones, the arches, the domes, and the calligraphy. It's a language that speaks to the soul, a legacy passed down through generations, reminding us of our faith, our history, and our connection to something far greater than ourselves. It's a conversation whispered through centuries, a continuing dialogue between faith and form. And it's a conversation still unfolding today. Goodbye, may Allah bless us all. That's our discussion for today.